so that would be my great cousin. So he was like around 16, 17. And he was the guy that molested me. So that was something that never really said out loud. That was the first time. There you go. And don't really care who knows. I don't. Nothing that I really want to hide anymore or I feel embarrassed about. Like, it's a testimony. Like, I am who I am, and I've gone through that shit, and it's something to be very grateful for. And so I am, and that's why I'm telling you guys about this. I'm sharing my story so that you can understand and see that you can come from a lot of different low places of pain, of suffering, of abuse, and get to a place where you feel whole. You feel yourself, you experience pleasure, you can receive. That was a big thing for me. Was I know that trauma specifically, although that wasn't the only time, but that specifically was something that made me armor up physically, disconnect from my body. And it took a while to get back to it. It really did. He was like 16, 17. I was like 5. And it was more than once. It wasn't just one time. It was definitely something that happened repetitively. And I didn't tell my aunt. I don't even remember it being, it felt secretive, but it didn't feel that bad. Except for there were parts of it now when I think of it, it disgusts me. But when I was a kid, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just like, oh, there's mess. Now when I think about it, it disgusts me, yes. But it's not something that I think about during my personal experiences of intimacy. So that was one of the things that I've been able to do, is separate that. Like, yo, this was that was harming of the innocent. That was taking advantage of me as a kid. That was a mentally ill person, which I still think he's mentally ill. And that was that. And so I don't bring that into my intimate space with my partners. And I don't connect that with love and with sex, like what I'm doing. The presence that I guess I have during sex, intimacy, and just feeling into my body is the reason why these kind of things can't just like float into my mind and ruin it for me. And one of the things that helped me to process the trauma, the tension that was in my pelvis, because there's a whole lot of no going on in there. And it's not just the molestation, it was also bad relationships, verbally abusive relationships. Like, I have been through it all. Like, I have some stories I told my friend, and she's known me since junior high. And she was like, girl, what? Like, it could be embarrassing, but it's not. To me, it's amazing to grow and to be, to change so much. Like, we get to keep changing too. Like, it's an adventure, and I'm excited. I'm really grateful that I've naturally resilient. I can't really say that I'm not blessed. I do feel naturally resilient. I feel strong. And I knew that when those things happened, that if my intention was to be free, was to not be affected by that, was to not be a victim, then that's what it would be. Like, I put the intention there, that's what happens. I always had that intention, like, I'm not gonna let this stop me. I got out the environment as soon as I could when I turned 18, didn't look back, and that was a new start for me. From that, I really slowly, gradually, like, got the layers off, and went from having relationships that were just kind of fulfilling my needs for security, for somebody to feel like somebody loved me. Sex was never good. It was just like, I was a body, I was laying there. And that was good enough, because it was some form of intimacy to me. So that was a perspective, just how I view receiving, how I view my worth, what I deserve, what I want. What were we talking about again? Let's see. And the reason I never said anything was because I didn't feel like it would do anything. Like, there was already enough struggle going on trying to, pay the rent and eat. And so I wasn't trying to add more drama to the situation by exposing my cousin and tearing the family apart. So that was my reason for not saying anything. That was the main one, to not have to deal with the fallout, the consequences. And also, I don't feel that the person that I would have told, I don't feel like my aunt would have believed me. And so that was also a reason to just not say anything. Was, if you feel like you're not going to be believed and heard, then you're just gonna hold on to that shit. Like, it's not worth the rejection. Held on to it, didn't say nothing. And it's funny too, because me and my sister had this conversation recently. I talked to her about it, and we kind of forgot each other's stories. But I'm so thirsty. So yeah, there was no reason in saying anything, and it had stopped after a certain amount of time, because, you know, you get too old, start to talk more, and they worry about you telling. So it stopped. It happened again, not from him, but from another man, I think around 7. And that, I don't have a lot of memory of that. I just remember feeling nasty. And yeah. So those are my stories. That's part of my story. And you can tell it's not my favorite subject. I talk about it all the time to like my friends, but I guess this whole like camera and more people out there thing makes it different. And you know, there's consequences to holding on to these things, to like basically living a lie, because you still have to deal with that person who abused you in your presence. If nobody knows what happened, then they're not going to put any, you know, consideration towards protecting you or creating space between you and your what's that guy called? Is it a molester? That asshole. Proper term. You and that asshole that touched you. It's hard to, you know, have a safe space when everybody doesn't know that you need safe space. Last Thanksgiving, my mom's sister aunt, not the aunt whose son molested me. This is a different aunt, you guys. To clarify, I know the other aunt would be pissed off if she got confused with the other one. So this is my aunt, who I you know, I love her dearly, and she didn't know, and so she invited our cousin to Thanksgiving, and I didn't know he was coming till last minute, and I was like, the fuck? And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Then again, it's kind of like the subtle, I guess, like armoring up or just being in his presence, or just looking at him and being like disgusted. That was enough to, you know, to try to stay away from those kind of situations. It's not healthy for me energetically. But nobody knew, so Vermont didn't know, so she invited him, and yeah. So he's sitting across the table. No, actually, first we took a picture, honey. Took a picture. I was like, come over here, Cornigan. Put your arm over here and stuff. I was like, yeah. I wish I could show you this picture. I actually have it. First, I was standing there, and I was like, don't touch me, don't touch me. And then I was like, you know what, fuck this. I moved over to the other side and created the distance that I needed. And I just got through it. It was fine. Also a matter of ignorance. So I wasn't upset that he was there, because nobody knew. Apparently, I didn't know that my sister had forgot. So I had to remind her more recently. So nobody knew but me. I'm just sitting there in my awkward corner. Nobody knows why I'm uncomfortable. I just was like wanting him to go away. But yeah, that's the consequence of not saying something, is that we have to continue to live in that lie and live in that darkness. The people that love us and that would actually create a safe space for us, they can't, because they don't know. They have no idea what's going on with you. So you have this very isolated internal battle, and it really is poisonous to your body, to your health, energetically. So it's nothing that we want to allow to take away our experience of life, is this traumatic experience. For me, I definitely did not, I don't know if it's just, you know, stubbornness, it's the Aries in me, but I did not want to allow him to win, or the negative experience to win. And I always have a stronger will to have a good life, a stronger will to be happy, than to dwell in sadness. And so chose not to be a victim, and I chose to be open and practice it, right? It takes practice. Sometimes you freeze back up, sometimes you release and open up to the right person. Sometimes that one person that you thought was the right one might make you to, you know, trigger you, and you go back into your shell. It's an up and down journey. I think as long as we have tools, we have support in place, we know that it's okay to feel bad, we know it's okay to feel unsafe, then we'll start to heal from that. So yeah, that was not my favorite Thanksgiving, and next year, you know, I'll be sure to be in charge of the invites. But I'm happy though. It didn't ruin my whole day. It was just kind of like, why are you here? Go away. And that was it. I was actually upset at my sister. I don't even think she knew this, I was upset at my sister for not remembering. I was like, bitch, why do you not know why I'm upset? Why I don't want to hear? Like, we know he's weird, but it's more than just weirdness. And so yeah, we talked, and I realized that she didn't know. So it was easy to let go too. It's all just misunderstandings and ignorance. But you know what? I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did talk about it. It was part of my healing journey to, it's like my final, like, put it out there, share and support. So by me sharing, I'm supporting you guys, women, men, everybody has endured sexual abuse, molestation. It's definitely not a sexist, gender-based thing. So I think that's one way we can all connect is through compassion, empathy. And trauma is not gender bias. Like whether you're a man, woman, in between, it doesn't matter. It affects you in the same way. It hinders you some way. It stops you from feeling safe in your body, stops you from feeling as much. That's like a handicap. It's an evolutionary handicap to walk around with all this trauma and to have information out there, to have teachers, to have access to information, to do something about it. So remember that you guys have to be responsible for yourselves. And that's something that I've always been good at. I knew because I didn't really grow up with a parent figure. So I knew that I had to be my own parent. I knew that I had to be accountable for myself and for my actions. And I think that's really helped me through the years of staying on some kind of track. I always feel like I've been, doing good for myself. And part of that is because I hold myself accountable. I said I was 18 or some shit like that. I can't remember. But I said, I'm gonna be my own parent. I'm going to lead with love. And this is after, I went to a bunch of different churches and was looking for that fulfillment. But I felt so fulfilled in trusting myself to be a loving being and be compassionate and lead with love. And so that's why I say it all the time. That's what I do. It was because it was so much simpler. It's easier life to trust yourself, to trust your heart and your compassion. I'm too lazy to do all the other stuff. Too many thought processes. I'm gonna keep it simple and lead with love. So that's my story, you guys. Not full of details because you don't really need the details. But I will mention though, one of the things that I realized was that I'm very oral, right? Very oral person. Everybody knows that oral pleasure is huge for me. And part of what I teach is how to awaken your oral pleasure even more so that it is connected with your yoni, with your hands. They're all the same kind of tools for pleasure. My oral pleasure, it's something I've accepted more recently, especially through my Tantra practice. And it's also a memory that I have of being molested. So those two things, I realize I'm like, how the hell do I not, how does that not hinder me? And I think it's just the sheer will that I am bound to have a great sex life and enjoy my pleasure, and that I deserve to receive pleasure. I don't deserve to have flashbacks of sexual abuse while I'm trying to be intimate with my mans. It's not what I want. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm the captain. I say what goes. What we do. I'm really grateful to be wired for pleasure and to have those wires awakened and working. It goes way beyond sex and pleasure. It goes to expression.